Welcome to another episode of the Powerlaw Investor. Today is the 17th of October 2025, Friday. And as I make this video, Bitcoin is trading at a little above 106K. Ethereum is around 3,800. Kaspa is just above 5 cents. And Fartcoin is trading just around 36 cents. And in today's video, I wanted to give you guys a market update on where we are in terms of the overall market, what I am seeing, what my understanding of where things are going, and my analysis of the balance of probabilities, both in the crypto space for the bigger boys like Bitcoin, and also for the altcoin space, particularly focusing on what we have been on this channel in terms of Kaspa and Fartcoin recently. And let's start off by taking a quick refresher of what we expected to happen and what recent market movements have been telling us. And again, this is not financial advice, it's for educational and informational purposes only. So, the starting point for me to understand where things are is looking at the power law for Bitcoin. That's this particular growth trend line that we can see is a really good straight line fit when we plot things in the excuse me, in the log domain. What that basically says when we convert it into the linear or when we look at these residuals, Bitcoin follows this path most of the time, but it does go above it and it does go below it. And what this says that every 4 years or so, we tend to go above it. And that cycle, if the 4-year pattern were to hold, if the future is like the past, would be happening around Q4 2025. So if we look on this chart, we can see that we had a peak around December 2017. Add another 4 years, you get to November 2021. 4 years to that, we would get around November, December 2025. And so the idea is that these positive residuals, and these residuals are when it goes above this orange line, would result in an increase in the price of Bitcoin. All right. And so the prediction was that we would probably be somewhere about here, which is somewhere between 150 and 200K towards the end of this cycle, which would be towards the end of 2025. Now, why does this happen? People have different competing theories on it. It's been linked to the halving. It could be linked to the liquidity cycle. Regardless, that's what seems to happen. And the safest bet for many of us, including myself, was, hey, this is what I am anticipating. I have the power law, which is this curved line. It's curved because it's linear in the log domain, but when we convert it to the linear domain, it's an upward sloping curve. And if you're buying below it, that's a good time to buy. If you're hoping that things will follow, the future will be like the past, you think that there'll be big blow off top in end 2025, and then that would drop down. But as we've been seeing on Bitcoin, that sort of peak, we headed up. These are weekly closes for Bitcoin, so this is the weekly over here. We seem to hit a peak around 122, 124, and then now have dropped down to 106. Right, and that is somewhat unexpected because at this point in the cycle, again following this 4-year cycle theory, we expected the values to be a lot higher. I expected the values to be a lot higher, and they're not. So the question that the overall market is looking at, especially with the massive liquidations that took place last Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is how bad is it? Have we already peaked? And again, the narrative is going to follow the price, right? And the most succinct metric that I have seen that makes sense to me is that unless Bitcoin has a couple of weekly closes below the 50-week SMA. Why is it the 50-week SMA? Again, this is experimental based on what's happened historically in the past. You guys can look back on it yourself and see, hey, whenever we've had weekly closes below the 50-week SMA, we start heading into a bear market. Similarly, we can look what happened even before that, right? You've had weekly closes below and you start heading below, etc., etc. Now, it doesn't catch the exact peak, of course, but that it almost doesn't matter what the reasoning is. It's a pattern that many in the cryptoverse as Ben Cohen would call it, have followed. And because there are so many believers in it, you can expect a bunch of people will basically call it, it's game over for this cycle if we have these weekly closes below the 50-week SMA. So that being said, for me, I still think that the 4-year cycle is active. I still think that we're going to get some sort of peak action in Q4 2025. I think it's going to be more muted than what many of us were hoping to believe. 200K seems such a fantastic possibility, but at this point, I think something up to 150K is reasonable. And my own predictions had been that it would be between 150 200K is when we would have the peak. So I think that's still on. If we do drop below the 50-week SMA, then we have to reconsider where we are. Okay, with this narrative in place, you can see if you look at the mood at crypto Twitter, it's very negative for a lot of people saying, oh my God, this is the end. Crypto has not really worked out the way expected it to. Let's just cut all that noise out and focus on what is happening, right? And I want to show you a couple of charts that will help us sort of navigate going forward. But I do want you to keep the narrative in mind that it is very negative right now. So what I am seeing in the market right now is a tremendous amount of fear. And in order to show this is the Kaspa PAI chart. Altcoins are going to massively suffer in this sort of environment. If Bitcoin is under pressure and everyone thinks that the cycle is over, the altcoins are an amplified version of what's going to happen. And so if Bitcoin drops by X, altcoins might drop to 2, 3, 4, 5, 10X that, right? And that's what we've seen. If we look at Kaspa right now, we're trading just above 5 cents. That gives us a PAI value of 0.1. That 0.1 indicates that we're in about near the bottom 5% or 6% of values that we have seen for Kaspa, adjusted for the trend. Okay, so that makes it a good time, relatively speaking, if we think prices are going to take off for the rest of the crypto market, right? And this is the big caveat that we have here. It may be a great time to buy Kaspa if we were in an uptrend, but right now it's unclear that we are in an uptrend or not, right? And there is a tremendous amount of fear and greed in the market, or sort of fear in the market. Here is a chart that's showing the Kaspa chart again, but I've colored it according to the amount of fear and greed that's present, and that's coming from the alternative.me website, right? And as you can see right now, if you turn annotations on, we're at a fear and greed index of 22, which is extreme fear at this point, right? And so we could go lower. It's actually just fear. The label needs to be adjusted. So the market is quite fearful right now. When we're at 100, the market is very euphoric and there's extreme greed. But right now we're at extreme fear. And just in July, we were already in this orange zone over here when we were quite greedy. So generally, even if you do decide that, hey, the altcoin market isn't for me right now, selling into extreme fear is probably not the best decision to make, right? Because now we have 2 points of data. We have the PAI that's saying, hey, we're near the bottom 5% or so of values, 6%, and we're in an extreme fear situation. So I think the opportunities are more to the upside rather than the downside. But you can't disregard that if we are coming towards the end of the cycle, or if we've already peaked in Bitcoin, that is going to translate down to the altcoin market as well. So the time is not to take crazy risks. The time is not to take massive leverage. The time is to play it safe, and probably the safest place to be is going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum. If the crypto market does take off, Bitcoin is going to give us a lot of the upside. But if it does drop down, Bitcoin is probably going to be the least impacted of the crypto, even though it could easily go down 10, 15% in a short period of time. But it's better than seeing the 50, 60, 80% drops that we've seen in alts. Similarly, for Fartcoin, right now, Fartcoin's history is a much shorter. And the amount that, and if you look at this, we're again the bottom 10% of values, even lower than that because the PAI value is almost near zero. That means based historically what we've seen, this would be a great time to buy Fartcoin if we thought we were still heading upward in the cycle. And right now, that's open to doubt, right? And so what I would say is Probability wise, I think it's a 70% probability that the cycle is not over. I still think we get all-time highs for Bitcoin in Q4 2025. The estimate, if I was really pushed, I would say that we might hit 150, but we might end lower than that also, maybe even in the 130s. But I still think there's a 70% chance of that happening. I think there's a 30% chance that we don't have that we've already hit the peak, and now there's downward 30% chance that we go downwards and the cycle has ended. And those are very difficult odds for me to take on a leveraged bet like I would be taking on with Kaspa or Fartcoin. Okay. And so again, I think the best risk adjusted way is to play it with Bitcoin. If things do take off, right, there will be chance to jump into memes. You don't have to catch the exact bottom. Even with altcoins like Kaspa with great technology, we could catch it on the way up. So switching more to a momentum than a value based metric makes more sense, and that's why I would be extremely cautious right now. And my own positions are fairly minimal in terms of altcoins. So if we keep on getting drops, at some point it just becomes too good, right? So if you have Caspa that falls around 4 cents, even lower, then I think based on how much confidence I have in the PAI, if I'm buying values near the PAI of 0, I think that's not a bad situation to be in. But that's a good 20-25% lower than where we are right now, right? And I think that 25% is in play. But again, if it does drop down, those could be really attractive opportunities to start building up a position. Because then even if I think, we're coming towards the end, even if I think that there is a 50% chance that we go upwards and 50% chance we go downwards, at that point, I've really minimized my risk, right? And so that's kind of how I would play this. I think stay in Bitcoin heavy. Ethereum, if that's the way you want to go, with a little more risk, and then just wait it out. Let's see which way the market goes. I can't predict the future. Anyone who's telling you that they can, I immediately would say like they're just, clickbaiting. And lots of fear and uncertainty, good time to examine some of the convictions that you have. If you do have substantial holdings in the altcoins, I would hold on to them. I think there would be better chances to exit. Exiting in this fearful situation is not going to get you a good exit opportunity, in my opinion. But of course, you know your financial situation better than I would. These are just my thoughts on it. So if you have any thoughts and comments, please go ahead. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe, please. I see many of you are not subscribers, even if you're watching this channel. And again, I think there's a 70% chance we get all-time highs with Bitcoin and the cycle continues. 30% chance to the downside that the cycle is over. I don't know how explosive of an alt season we get at this point. So for me, the bright situation is to wait and see what happens. If the price for Kaspa and other coins that I'm tracking, like Fartcoin, drops closer to the 0 PAI range, it's already there for Fartcoin, but I am hesitant about this because we only have about a year's worth of data. But if we do end up getting near the 0 values for the PAI for Kaspa, then I do think it would be useful, and I'm likely going to increase my exposure at that point. So I hope that's a comprehensive quantitative picture of where I think things are, and I hope it's useful as you navigate this uncertain time yourself. Best of luck out there, and see you on the next video.